Hey, look out. It's Faith Talk Live. I'm Rick Probst.
And I'm Dan Radcliffe.
There she is, one of our favorite guests. I mean that, Lisa. I really mean that. Lisa Anderson from Focus on the Family. She's the host of The Boundless Show. No doubt you've heard it. It's on Faith Talk Atlanta. She's also director of young adults at Focus on the Family. And what a great podcast I want to talk to her about. That and more in just a few. How are you, first of all?
Well, I'm doing well. I would appreciate the favorite status in writing, Rick, at some point.
We can get that to you. Definitely. We can make that
That would be excellent. Signed. Yeah. And sealed. So no, doing well today. It's great. Summer's my favorite season. So I love it. Yep.
Yeah. Dan, I mean, here she is. She's a wealth of everything, right? Knowledge, wisdom, but I think it's probably her sarcasm that we like the most, don't you think?
That is exactly what it is. She has the spiritual gift of sarcasm, just like you and I do, I believe. So it's something that we share together.
A little bit of that. That is very true. So yeah, sometimes I have to temper it though, especially around my older friends. They don't always get it. And by old, I mean like my 97-year-old neighbor. It's a little lost on her sometimes. So.
Wow.
Well, I noticed you glanced at my video when you said older. You didn't glance at.
Well, I didn't mean that old, Rick. I meant just around 96, 97. I didn't.
Which is really a cool story because I heard that on the latest podcast that you go grocery shopping from time to time, and basically the podcast. I want to get into this in just a second. Managing your money despite inflation. And you were talking to, I don't know how old they are. They're obviously younger than me. Mm-hmm. Some very smart. I mean, some of the answers I thought, whoa, I'm taking notes here. Help me. But it came up that you shop for your 96-year-old neighbor, and she can get you digital coupons and paper coupons, and it was talking about saving money in this inflationary time. So that's pretty cool. How long have you been doing that?
She is, so weirdly enough, my housemate and I, we're friends. We met her on a trail just across the street when she was the young age of 92, I believe, out hiking. And actually, we had her over for the 4th of July, and that was our 4-year anniversary of knowing her. When we first met her on the 4th of July, she was hiking in a star-spangled, and by spangled, I mean rhinestones and whatever, star shirt with dangly, sparkly earrings, and was all dressed up. And so she came over just the other night, and we celebrated again for that. And so, so it's been a while, and she's slowing down a little bit physically, but man, she is sharp. And so she's something to aspire to.
I love that she's 97 and wearing rhinestones and sparkly and everything. That's awesome.
I can tell that she often looks at me with disdain with my fashion choices. And she would love to do some styling because clearly, the t-shirt, this would not fly for her. So
not bedazzled enough, I guess.
No, not at all. No, I did put earrings in though. That was a good, I felt like that was a nod to her.
That's good.
And you know, it's awesome. She's 96, 97, and she's hiking and going out and that kind of thing. Is she from Colorado? Is she a Colorado native, or do you know?
She's a Texas native.
Look out.
She actually, they build them strong in Texas, I guess.
They do. Mm-hmm.
She's a Texas native, but lived a good portion of her life in the Chicago area. Interestingly enough, she's probably one of the oldest living young life workers and volunteers out there, beginning first in like the 1940s, I think it was, on staff with them. And so she still supports them. And of course, they're local here to Colorado Springs as far as their headquarters. And so she's still pretty involved, but such a sweet person and a little firecracker.
Well, and if she lived in Chicago nowadays, that'll make you tough because it's a tough city to live in right now.
Her son still lives there, and she said, and he has a PhD, and I keep saying, I thought you're the smart one. Why do you still live there? So she's pretty funny. Yeah.
That's funny. Lisa Anderson, host of The Boundless Show. Check it out. Director of Young Adults for Focus and podcasts. Before we get into that, I do want to get into serious stuff. But you mentioned something on the podcast about filling your car up for $50. What are you driving?
I got a Honda CRV at this point.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah, you can't really, in Colorado, you're kind of lame if you don't drive an SUV. And
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
an overstatement, but it is kind of for those, occasional days of snow we get in the winter that, I have family up in Fargo, so they're not buying it.
Yeah.
But we get snow here and then you have to drive through it and then it melts 2 days later. So, nothing as crazy as Atlanta, of course, guys, you guys with your wild weather down there.
I tell you what, if there's a hint of snow, if there's a mention of snow, it gets crazy. So,
oh my goodness.
Yeah.
If somebody just uses the SN part of a word, people
they
just
said snow,
panic.
get milk and bread, hurry.
School's shut down,
on?
everything's, yep.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to go back to your podcast. I've been hinting about it here for a little while. Managing Money Despite Inflation, episode 752, if you're taking notes at home, boundless.org. Really, I love the structure. I love the sound. I love everything about your podcast. And again, I know you have somebody, I think, that produces it. The music choices are really, really good. Where you got these three young men talking about finances and inflation, I thought it was just brilliant, their answers. And it's not something they studied up for and made notes. It just came out of that's what they're doing. They're practicing. Yeah. And you got to listen. You got to listen to this podcast. It's really, really good. What are the young people, and they are young people, what are young men and women saying about these times, not just the inflation, the flip of Roe versus Wade, which if you watch television at all, it's crazy town.
Mm-hmm.
And what else is going on? You've got the conflict in Ukraine and all this stuff, politics. It's all, what are young people saying and what are your answers for them? Or do you let them answer themselves? It seems like they're answering their own questions.
Well, we kind of, it's kind of a mixed bag. And that's the fun aspect of the show, especially in that first segment that you heard, Rick, which we call our roundtable, because that really is just young adults doing life and talking about it and helping one another out. So we don't bring our experts in usually until segment 2.
Yeah.
And so that one in particular was really fun because I think these three guys, never thought, they all have jobs. So they're just like, why would we ever think that we had to pinch pennies and worry about finances and stuff? I mean, we're like single dudes, just like renting, sharing a house with some guys and stuff. So but it was a big deal. And you could tell, like one of them said, I've started clipping coupons.
Yeah.
I feel like my grandma, I'm clipping coupons. And another one said, I'm trying to make some smart investment strategies. And I just figured, just dump money in your 401k and you're good. And that's no longer enough. And so, in fact, I haven't even checked mine because I'm too afraid. So I'm like, don't even want to go there. But then we think of like, Roe v. Wade, for example, huge celebrating at Focus on the Family and at Boundless even. But for us, it's very nuanced in the sense of young adults. They don't want to hear, and we all know this, that, legislation is not the root of this issue. It's not the root of the solution. You don't change legislation, you change hearts on this issue. And I hope we'll see a tidal wave in that direction. But really for us, the emphasis is, okay, this is monumental. God did a big thing, but what are we doing at the local level? What are we doing now to embrace these moms and these kids and dads who are hurting and doing our part as the church to step in and provide resources and care and support? And so that's something that our Boundless audience really rallies around, and feeling very, very much digital natives, but also, I mean, I was joking with you guys about my intern earlier. This is the first year I've had an intern who was not born at 9/11. So, 2002 is the birth year of most of the interns in our intern class this year. And so you think of a group of young people that have grown up not knowing what it's like to not have terror as a threat over your nation, to not experience a lot of the stringent parameters that we have and a lot of things that go around. Of course, now they consider themselves only half jokingly the COVID generation because that's something they just walked through as a big formative part of their college years in particular. And so I think there's a certain amount of weariness in this and feeling like everything that their parents and grandparents have promised them, a la the American dream,
Yeah.
is not just assumptive anymore. And so they have to trust in something bigger, and that is God himself.
That's so good. Dan, I think your mic's off.
My bad. I muted myself to cough and forgot to unmute.
Did you not put the quarter in the microphone slot?
Yeah, I forgot to.
Okay, sorry about
anyway,
that.
my bad. I'm a professional. Lisa, do you find when you're talking to these younger folks, especially on social issues like the Roe v. Wade, like LGBTQ rights and all that, that they kind of see things differently than we, like as a Gen Xer or the older generations did? I mean, we were just talking with our we have a teenager and then young 20s, and they seem to be more like, well, is it such a bad thing? And you have to explain to them, yes, spiritually, this is what God says.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and again, it's an issue of native experience. And so, for example, you think of, I think I just read an article the other day that it's around between 30 and 40% of Gen Z now are identifying in some end of the LGBT spectrum. And, some of that is just experimentation. Some of that is confusion, but many are claiming that label in some sense. And so when you think of a Christian young adult, maybe young 20s, they're like, look, here's the deal. I have got friends who are gay. I have family members who are gay. Maybe I have coworkers. They're all great people. They're nice people. They're fun to work with. They're hilarious. They're whatever. And so their experience of this, it's hard for them to reconcile what they know to be biblical truth, but to say, but maybe, what about what's God really saying about this? And so that's why, really my goal at Boundless these days is to disciple a generation of young adults to read the Bible for themselves, understand the Bible, and apply it to their lives on a Tuesday, because that's where the rubber hits the road. And so, and again, we're constantly saying, one of our conversations around Pride Month was, what's the best way to love your LGBT neighbor? It's not by just putting up a pride overlay on your profile picture on social media. The best way is to truly love them where they are and acknowledge that we're all sinners, but also point them to a better way and introduce them to Jesus Christ and show them that, no one just wakes up one day and says, today I think I'm not going to be gay. No one just decides that. The transforming work of Jesus Christ has to happen, as with all of us who struggle with sin.
Lisa Anderson, host of the Boundless Show, director of Young Adults in Focus, and check out her podcast and her show. Lisa, if you can stay, I'd like to keep you for just a little while. We'll do one more segment with you. Got a few more things I'd like to talk to you about. If you got to go, it's all good. Go to FOTF.org. I think you can go to also Boundless, right? Boundless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, boundless.org.
Yeah. And love having Lisa on the show. Check out the podcasts. What was I going to say? Well, it's interesting what you said, because the whole with the Pride Month, we just experienced Pride Month, and Pride Month was displayed everywhere. I mean, I have my middle son has special needs, and when I'm in the office, he's watching, Nickelodeon. He's watching some of the other, he likes the cartoons, and so I'd be going back to the kitchen, getting something, coming back to the office, and there's, it's Pride everywhere, and I'm like, wow, it's, how do I communicate that? We continue to let him watch it. We're not banning him from watching the cartoons, but it's a conversation that we have had and have to have with our children and our grandchildren. I said all that to say, my youngest son. Now I consider myself, hey, I'm a boomer, former hippie. I still like rock and roll, tattoos, biker. It's all right there, but I'm not way right. I'm kind of more rightish middle, I guess, if you want to know the politics, because I'm very strong on social issues. I want people to be taken care of, but I don't want them to abuse the system. I said all that to say this. My youngest son is 19, almost 20, and his girlfriend is 17, 18, and she has 3 friends that have just come over the house, and they are by birth male. Well, 2 of them, 1 female. One identifies as a female. One is cross-dressing. And so they seem to be somewhere around the 16, 17, 18 mark. Just when you think in your mind you don't have any battles with that, because we feel like we open our house to anyone and love them, because the love of Christ is what sets the captives free, right?
Absolutely.
But it was a challenge. Of course, I wouldn't say anything because I'm not that way. And I want to treat them fairly as a person, as a human, and with the love of Christ. But it is, when you're faced with that, it's something that you have to check your mind and go, okay, I do believe the scripture. It says what it says. But as you so beautifully put, love them beyond the Pride Month banner on your Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
Love them, period, with nothing held back. And I had to grow. It was an area in my mind where my mind is screaming, yes, but this is not right. And I know it's not. But that's not the time to say this is not right. Stand up and beat you crazy like with the Bible, but to love them. So hopefully we demonstrated that, and we'll continue to do that. Why did I say all that? But thank you so much. Well, thank you. But it was just to reiterate what you just said, because it's so powerful. Love is the key, right?
Yeah. Well, and the whole thing is, I mean, we have to remember that scripture itself says that our battle is not against flesh and blood. We're not out there battling, the LGBT activists or whatever. We're battling in this world. Satan himself is out to take us out. And so, I have a number of LGBT friends, and some would call themselves Christians. Others would be agnostic or atheist. It just runs the gamut. Yeah. But all of them, as I view them as my friends, it's a deception. It is it's not anyone saying, the one thing that I want to do today is just choose to maybe end up being transgender, or I want to, Satan has blinded the eyes of this world, and without the work of the Holy Spirit in our lives, we will not see. And so, again, it's just this opportunity to say, wow, speak truth. And I do. All of my friends know exactly where I stand. They know that I hold the biblical truth, because I think it's also not helpful to be shady in that direction and be like, well, let's just leave it up for debate. It's not, because God's established that. But at the same time, we know that, it's the kindness of God that leads people to repentance. Yes. And so we want to model that in every way.
Good stuff.
So Lisa. Good. Yeah. If Lisa ever starts a church, Dan, I think we're in.
Yeah, or if she runs for office, I'm voting for
her. Okay, I'll keep you posted.
Lisa Anderson, check out the Boundless Show, and director of Young Adults for Focus. Just some good stuff. Listen to all the podcasts. The latest one, probably a new one dropping pretty soon. I think that one was just a few weeks ago, but it's really, really, really good. Episode 252. All right, do you have time? Do you ever touch on things like, I hate to say the G word, guns? I mean, because we live in a time now, it's
especially lately. I mean, it's been a big hot button issue.
Yeah. And I'm all in. I had a conversation with somebody, and I'm in no means dogmatic about any of this, but I said, it's really a matter of the heart. If you're going to get a gun, you're going to get a gun. But I try not to even go there, because politics and guns and that stuff is just too messy. What are the young people saying that are Christ followers that you've run into, that you lead, that you take care of, that you minister to? What are they saying about the gun issue?
Yeah, I think it's another one of those really hard conversations that we have to have on, the balance of personal freedoms and what we are given, our rights in this nation. And, hey, the Second Amendment is there for a reason. But also recognizing that when you see, again, just this past weekend, violence in the North Shore of Chicago, and seeing, I think, again, this is where that weariness comes in with our audience of just like, is it ever going to stop? When, and there is I think this is where young adults are very willing to learn and to accept the facts, that taking it all into account, the components of mental illness that are coming into this, the components of fatherlessness, many of them are living that out and the ramifications of that. And then also recognizing, that can there be another conversation around guns and the application of the Second Amendment and how this plays out? What does that look like? And so, do we need, say a college student, do my peers or students even younger than I am need to be running around with military grade weapons? I mean, I think there's a conversation that has to be had. And again, it's a balance of where are our freedoms? What does this look like? What freedoms do we lay down for the cause of Christ personally and corporately? And how do we go about that in a way that is kind and also using common sense?
Yeah, Lisa, thank you so much for what you do, and especially with the generation that you work with, because I mean, I love that age generation, but it can be hard because as we get older, we get so set in our ways, and it's hard for us to think, well, why are they thinking differently than me? But just loving on them and pointing them to Christ, because so many of them are walking away from their faith altogether, and they need people like you, Lisa. So thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you. And real quick, on your podcast, you asked your guests on the roundtable, what are you willing to give up during these crazy times of inflation, and what are you not willing to give up? That's my question to you. What are you willing to give up?
Oh my goodness. Well, this is funny. It's not too different for me just in normal non-inflationary times. I always say, because I'll talk to young adults a lot, and there's a talk that I give that I call advice to my 20-something self. And it's in 5 different areas of what I wish I'd known when I was in my 20s, as I look back on those years. And I feel like, oh man, had I known some of these things, maybe I would have, avoided a world of hurt in some areas. But financially, I always tell people principles apply. Figure out what is important to you and then be willing to scrimp in other areas. So for me, experiences are important. Even during inflation, I'm going to do a road trip. I'm going to travel with friends. I'm going to do vacation. I'm going to make that happen. What I'm not going to do is enter into the world of high fashion, as we can see right here, much to the chagrin of my precious neighbor. I'm not into like high, entertainment. Like I would rather go and hang out with friends than go to some expensive meal. I'm not a foodie. I'm not into all that kind of stuff. I don't have a lot of stuff. And so I've definitely cut back there. And I have just I love finding ways to save money. And so I make it a game. And so, probably not giving up coffee anytime soon.
Yeah,
so
don't do that.
that's it's kind of a non-negotiable at this point. So there are other things that, like food that has to go instead of coffee. It really is. It's a give and take and realizing how to make it work.
So good. Lisa Anderson. Lisa, we'd love to talk to you in the fall, catch up with you, see what's going on. You are a gem. You really are.
Mm-hmm.
Lisa Anderson, host of the Boundless Show, here that at FaithTalk Atlanta, director of young adults at Focus. Let's take a break. We'll be right back. I'm Rick Probst.
And I'm Dan Ratcliffe.
This is FaithTalk Live.